In today's episode of the Pathfunk Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest with me here today. I'm with Hammad Mirza, who is the global head of growth and marketing at Inslee. And Inslee is doing some quite interesting things that enable a lot of folks to be much quicker in their digital product development. So essentially, and we're going to be actually learning about the expansion of Inslee as well into different sectors. At the moment, the website says design and deliver insurance products, and we're going to be learning today what this is all about. So, Hammad, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Give us the 360 overview. What is Inslee all about?
Yeah, so in short, Inslee is an insurance software platform for MGAs who are managing general agents or insurers, basically. We also have a division of software software team based in Poland, and they look after brokers. Brokers are their primary customer, but the division that I sit in focuses on MGAs, insurers, and within that are people like underwriters and CEOs and other people on the C-suite as well, basically. So in short, what the platform does is one-stop shop. It's kind of a multi-product suite as well. It provides a full cycle MGA solution. So everything from policy admin to data insights to quoting and binding efficiency, and also really valuable data insights, but also kind of accounting and reporting features as well. So kind of a full cycle one-stop shop for MGAs, underwriters, and insurers to actually come out of the dark ages. Essentially, a lot of these companies, or some of these companies at least, they operate still on places like or on systems like Excel. So we are basically bringing them up to speed with the digital world, basically.
Makes a whole lot of sense. Just for everybody who's not so familiar with the industry in specifics, could you give us like one or two sort of like main tasks that the technology would radically simplify for the users?
Yeah, definitely. So quoting and binding a insurance policy, doing that kind of manually without Inslee, it could be quite a laborious process and one that's quite fragmented that has to go through multiple stages. With Inslee, it's done all kind of within one frame, within one single product dashboard, with a lot of different kind of controls and configurations that you can kind of adopt specific to your company as well, basically. So that's just kind of a rough example. Rather than working through different systems, you can work across one system to complete a full kind of process within kind of the insurance space, basically.
Yeah, that makes it actually quite tangible. Very, very cool. Who would be your clients? I mean, it's quite obvious to us is what you were describing, but maybe tell us a little bit more about sort of the types of companies, the sizes, maybe even the individuals that are finding Inslee helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the actual companies who use Inslee, they can vary as well. There are startups, like insurance startups, who are kind of just starting out. They want to get their name out there. They don't have any systems at all. I think that's quite an important type of customer. The other one is kind of customers who have the customers who already kind of have a insurance product or a set of products, and they have issues with scaling. So that can be, they can't afford to scale with the systems that they've got anymore and with the team that they've currently got as well. So to go that extra mile or to have that kind of extra leap, they need to kind of unlock something like Inslee to actually take them to that next level, basically. So you've got the kind of the startup space, you've got the people who have been around for slightly longer who need help with scaling, and then you've got a couple of enterprise insurance companies who work with us as well.
Yeah, makes complete sense. And who would be the individuals? Like, who's raising the hand and says we need something like this? Is that somebody more from the sort of like operational side because they see all the issues, or is it really from a technical side because they raise their hand and say, hey, we should not actually build all of this ourselves? Like, who's raising the hand?
Sometimes it's one or the other. Sometimes it's both. So you'll get obviously kind of leaders within the organization or the business who want to take their kind of operation to the next level. But then you've also got the people who are on that operational level, such as your underwriters, for example. They are very much kind of an audience or a kind of a persona type that we serve, who actually, you know, they're more on the ground and they're more on kind of the on that level. So it could be fitting to their needs. It could be a process improvement from their perspective as well. So yeah, I think that that's kind of a key audience. And then you've also got kind of the technical side of things as well. So you might have kind of a CTO who has specific technical challenges that they're trying to overcome. And we can have kind of a separate conversation with them, or an inclusive conversation with them, about how kind of our technology can help support them and bring them on board as well.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And now you're working in growth. So what would you say, like these individuals that we just spoke about, how do they actually get to know about Inslee? What's their journey of getting started? Or in other words, what are sort of the key client acquisition channels that you guys are leveraging?
Yeah, definitely. So kind of historically and currently, the website is a good driver in terms of inbound. We've also kind of launched some paid social activity quite recently. That's a good driver of inbound as well. And then also we kind of partner up, or we have places where we are listed as well, such as the InsurTech Top 100, for example, where within that. So that brings in a good amount of traffic as well, basically. So they're kind of the inbound sources. And then from an outbound perspective, we do have a sales team who kind of reach out to prospective customers as well. So there's kind of a push and pull strategy that we've got going on at the moment. Obviously looking to expand into new channels as well. Now that you know, probably the worst of COVID is behind us, hopefully we can move to physical events, but we can definitely move to virtual events, whether they're webinars that we host ourselves or we kind of co-host them with another organizer. They are kind of spaces that we are willing to and will soon be entering as well.
Very cool. Now you mentioned inbound quite a bit, and the website being already a long-time driver for the company. What's your personal take? Like typically sort of, you know, marketers that we talk with, they're quite critical with the websites. Like where would you say is the major strength of the page at the moment versus where do you see the biggest room for improvement?
Yeah, definitely. So the website that we have at the moment is quite simple in its current form. It's quite informative. And it's kind of like ultimately it's our shop front. You can get very simple information from there, but to kind of dig into the next level, that's when we kind of need to take a slightly different approach, basically. So we've recently kind of onboarded HubSpot as our CRM partner for marketing and sales. A big part of that will also be the creation of landing pages within HubSpot as well, which is in the control of marketing. So when people are kind of coming in from a certain channel in the funnel, on top of the funnel, then they can actually learn more about that campaign in which they've entered from. Say, for example, if it's a paid ad on LinkedIn, they can go through to a page that's completely irrelevant to them. That is the case already, but with HubSpot, obviously that can be improved quite a lot. With things like dynamic content, dynamic names, dynamic company names, etc. So there is that element of kind of personalization there as well. And then obviously also having kind of form submissions or meeting scheduler elements on there as well will help to kind of encourage that sales intent as well, like who is actually interested in the product. You know, so that conversion piece is actually very important. And I think that will take some time to actually learn what works best. Is it better to have more form fields? Is it better to have a smaller amount and then ask more later? I think there's quite a few areas for kind of A/B experimentation there, for sure.
Very good. I actually would love to go a little bit deeper into this because what has been a recent theme on the podcast has been sort of this idea of like why people convert or not convert. Like, how do you go about this of figuring out why they don't convert?
It's a very interesting one. I think and it can be very company and product specific as well. Why most people don't convert, like an assumption from my part would be that they're just not ready to yet. Like it could be quite a hard sell. Like if you're coming in via LinkedIn or via Facebook, these are two passive intent channels where you've been targeted either based on your interest or retargeting, which is slightly different. But if you've been targeted on your interest, you're not actively wanting to buy that product. So by clicking on that ad, video or static, you're going to that landing page, but you never have the intent to buy or purchase in the first place. So, there's an element there of having kind of like a 2 or a 3-step funneled approach, where you then take the people who have visited the page, give them kind of a message that's stronger or more compelling, and then relaying them back to maybe a separate landing page, which has like a single CTA, single form, has, a very simple intent, which is to, proceed to the next step or book a meeting if it's B2B, or purchase a product if it's B2C or D2C. For active intent channels such as Google search, for example, or direct traffic, then, that then needs to be kind of assumptions that are tested. Why aren't they converting? That needs to be something that needs to be tested. It could be a combination of your message isn't strong enough. It could be that the bridge between coming in via a Google ad and the copy on that ad can be wildly different from what's on the landing page. So there needs to be consistency across channels as well. So I think that's very important from like an active intent perspective. If you're bidding on a certain keyword and that keyword is nowhere to be seen on your landing page, or is completely irrelevant, then that's not the most ideal experience for them. It's all about kind of the experience, whether that's 2 channels, 3 channels, 7 channels. It doesn't matter how many they go through. They need to have prospects need to have a good experience.
And sort of with sort of the data that stands available, I mean, typically it's something like Google Analytics or some heat mapping tools or whatever. Like, how do you typically decide what to change on the website? Like, what's sort of your internal process about this? How do you guys approach this at all? Like, deriving what needs to change on the website?
Yeah, definitely. So the website can never stay the same. Like it can never be the same now at this time in 2021 to this time next year in 2022. From a top-down perspective, the company-wide messaging and the product messaging could change based on company developments and based on product developments as well. So it's always best to get that top-down level message correct always. And if there is any pivot points or changes in that message, then that needs to be reflected on that's not a message that should change too often, but when it does, it should be reflected on a regular basis, to stay in line with kind of company values and the rest of it, basically. And then from a more specific perspective, I guess things like new product development, they can have a space on your website as well, and you can kind of continue to improve that. And I think there's always like a feedback cycle as well, especially within B2B sales. There's always a feedback cycle for you to kind of update your messaging based on what your existing customers and your newly acquired customers are saying about you. They might give you very honest feedback and say, look, your advertising or your messaging is too aggressive. They might say, look, it's not technical enough. It needs to be more technical. And that's when you can decide, okay, maybe we need to create personalized landing pages for a certain type of people, whether it's a certain sector or type of insurance, or if it's a certain job title for people within an insurance company. That can really, really help as well.
Very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit about sort of your role in marketing, because what is interesting is, at least what we've seen here is, I mean, everybody sees that there's so much content, right? On growth and on marketing. You could day in and day out read articles on what to do. How do you filter? Like, what are the places that you like to go to, that you read, where you trust, and where you get inspiration from?
Very good question. I always like to kind of refer back to the pioneers of growth marketing in particular. So there's Brian Balfour, who's the ex VP of HubSpot. He also came out with a Reforged the program, which I've actually taken part in from a marketing strategy perspective earlier this year. So that was a really good kind of program of learning, but also there was a really good content of learning as well, and templates that can be applied to different businesses. So that was kind of really important from like a frameworking perspective as well. There is kind of general unit economics that can be kind of seen from other influencers in that growth space, such as Andrew Chen, who's previously at Uber. There's also Sean Ellis, who was the author of Growth Hacking as well. It's still a book that I refer to on a very regular basis. I actually gave that to, there's another member in my team, in my marketing team, and I actually gave this book to him because I found it immensely valuable the first time I read it, and it's still something that I refer back to. And for anyone's learning, I even joked around with him and I said, look, like I've learned more in this book than I previously learned in my 3 years of studying to get my marketing degree. So there's so much value in there that is just unreal, and there's so many good examples. And
would you mind to just call it out for the listeners one more time, the book?
Yeah, Growth Hacking by Sean Ellis.
Very good. Awesome. Very, very cool. I mean, I can tell you're going to the OGs, basically.
Definitely, yeah. And there's always new stuff that kind of catches your attention as well. But you never know where that stuff is going to last or it's not going to last. So it's always good to keep an eye on kind of new innovative stuff. But as long as you've got solid principles, good frameworks, and you're operating within a logical space that you can excel in, then that's always a good place to be.
Very cool. I want to wrap it up with some rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
Let's do it.
What's the last book you read?
The last book I read was, I think it's actually behind me here. It's a book by James Clear called Atomic Habits. I signed up for his newsletter and I actually purchased his book because I got quite a lot of good insight from that. Very cool. What's the one single thing that the company is focused on the most at the moment? Growth. A new client acquisition, new lead acquisition. There are two massive levers that need pulling right now. If there would be no boundaries in tech, what's the one thing you would fix for your role today? It would be maybe an all-in-one platform for marketers. Just something that makes it easier for us to operate. There's a lot of different moving parts in marketing, whether it's technical or it's creative. So having something that maybe integrates with lots of different marketing SaaS tools and just bringing it all into one place, I think would be really powerful from like a workflow perspective. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company? Not being able to grow as fast as I would like. There's key learnings that need to be done. So yeah. Very cool. And if you would allow some time travel, let's go back to the days of the University of Westminster. So my question would be, now you're stepping out there, it's the last day, you just got finished the education. I mean, not finished education, but finished official education. Yeah. What's the one advice you would give yourself? The one advice I would give myself is to learn some technical skills, I would say, and jump into tech sooner rather than later. I had like a 2-year gap when I was working in marketing in like a normal digital capacity, but not within tech as a sector. And if I could, sub that 2 years with 2 years in tech, then, that is essentially like a small lifetime, basically of kind of compounding growth. Yep. Very, very cool. Hammad, I really appreciate you taking the time with us today to be part of Pathmark Presents. I want to give you the last word. If somebody would be forgetting all that we discussed about Inslee today, what's the one thing they should remember? It's a digital insurance platform that you will soon see everywhere, and then it was also changing the shape of insurance for good. Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents. No worries. Thanks, Lucas.